One of the questions I get asked more than anything is, why is it called 40 times around? What is 40 times around? And the reality is there's actually two questions here. The first question is pretty simple and easy to answer, and that's, what is 40 times around? 40 times around basically just means a million miles. If you go around the equator 40 times, that's the equivalent of a million miles. That's what 40 times around is referring to. But there's a deeper question, and a question I think is more important to answer, and that is, why is it called 40 times around? Now, I've been getting this question quite a bit lately, and I'm actually a little surprised that I haven't made a video about this yet. I did kind of answer it in a Q&A, but this definitely is a little deeper than just a quick answer. I think the timing of it is actually working out well as we approach this new year with 40 times around and the direction things are about to start taking. So I want to answer this question today. What is the meaning of 40 times around? Why is it called 40 times around? And I'm actually really excited to get into this in more detail. Anyways, I'm Tim Collins. This is my channel 40 times around, where we talk about everything related to motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. And today we're talking about the origin of the name 40 times around. Stick around. So like I said, one part of this question has a really easy answer. What is 40 times around? Well, it's a million miles. If you go around the equator, just circle the equator in a straight line 40 times, that's the equivalent of a million miles. But to get into why I decided to call it 40 times around, there's a little bit of history first. So I moved from New York to Arizona a few years ago to pursue a career in motorcycle mechanics. And as I was going to school, I started realizing, I don't really want to be in a shop. I don't want to be stuck in one place. My passion really is traveling on motorcycles. And this was something that was kind of evolving at the time. It was still relatively new for me. I had been traveling on motorcycles, taking trips here and there, longer trips, but this passion was just growing and it was really consuming my life. I thought that passion was just motorcycles, and so I thought a career as a motorcycle mechanic made perfect sense. But as I started going through class and learning, and don't get me wrong, I was thoroughly enjoying school, I just wanted something more. I wanted something bigger. I started thinking about maybe working for a tour company, but I really appreciated the freedom of traveling on a motorcycle. I didn't want to be restricted to tours and running tours. So I started developing this idea in my head of like, what am I going to do when I graduate? I came out to Phoenix, I left my family, I moved across the country for a better life. I'm deciding that the school I'm going to, I'm going to put it to good use, but I'm not going to do what I'm getting a certificate in. How can I turn this into something bigger? How can I do something bigger than myself? These ideas started growing and snowballing as they typically do with me. I have a tendency of running away with an idea. So I started thinking about, okay, maybe I want to ride up to Alaska. That'd be cool, right? That'd be a fun thing to do to kind of ease this yearning for motorcycle travel. But that wasn't quite big enough. So I started thinking, well, maybe I'll head south from here and I'll head into Central America. And that kind of snowballed into, well, if I'm going to go to Central America, I might as well keep going. And I might as well go down to South America too. And that kind of snowballed a little bit further. If I'm going to go to South America, I might as well just ride around the world. Might as well just hit every continent at that point. That's really what I want to be doing anyway. So now this idea was born with no real wheels. I had no way of making this happen. I hadn't been making a lot of money over the past few years because I kept quitting jobs to go travel. I would work somewhere for 8 months, and then I'd go travel for 2 or 3 months. I had never really picked a career and stuck with it. Fixing motorcycles, although it was a great career and I could eventually make money, I was starting at the bottom even coming out of school, so there wasn't really money to be had there. So I knew that just saving the money wasn't really going to be a viable option. I had to think of a way to basically work around the world, find a way to make money as I travel and work my way around the world. So this was the plan, and this was the dream that was kind of born my year that I had spent going to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. I started doing research into other people that had done it. Other people that had traveled the world for 2 or 3 or 4 years at a time, or some people even longer than that. I started looking into a lot of the original people, men and women, that had traveled around the world before it was an acceptable thing to do, before people were really thinking about that. One of the people I stumbled upon in my research was Emilio Scotto. And Emilio Scotto wrote a book called The Longest Ride. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. I'll leave a link to it in the description box below. It's an amazing story, very inspirational. Long story short, he left his home in Argentina without much money and ran out of money pretty quickly, but ended up traveling the world for 10 years, riding 500,000 miles. This was pretty impressive to me, particularly the way that he did it with no money, no upfront money. He found a way to just kind of make it work. A lot of it was the good grace of other people. They would give him a little money and get him to the next town, and he'd keep going. But it kind of caught on, and it sort of snowballed. And like I said, he ended up traveling for like 10 years, 500,000 miles. I was so impressed and blown away by this. I started kind of aiming at shaping a trip similar to what he had done because I was so inspired by this. And he's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest motorcycle ride. Now, I'm not trying to beat that. I don't think it's a reasonable idea for me to try to beat that. Just my life is just different, and the world we live in is just different. So that's not where I'm going with this, right? I didn't set out to say, okay, I'm gonna beat his high score, you know? So he went 500,000 miles, and I'm talking about 1,000,000 miles. Well, the reason for the name, behind the name, and I'm going to get a little more into the idea of this, but I was thinking about what he accomplished and what he did and how this was so big and all of this. And I want to explore new things and new places and new territory. And the problem is, we live in a world where everything's already been explored. There isn't much left that you can go see for the first time in this world. It's very, very rare, if at all. So the idea behind doubling his mileage is it's about going bigger and further than the last time. If I can't explore places that Emilio Scotto has explored, or anyone that came before me, then I want to explore limitations and explore endurance and other aspects of this. See, it's not just about mileage, and this is important. It's never been about mileage for me. It's about the adventure, it's about meeting people, the experience, the journey of traveling around the world, not in miles, but in days. This is what's important, but the name comes from going bigger, going further. Not necessarily even than anybody else, but even just going bigger and further than you've gone. Compete with yourself. So that's a little more on the meaning of it. Now, Emilio Scotto, also another interesting fact about him, he did this on a Honda Goldwing, and he did not stick to paved roads. He was all over the map, through the Amazon mud, everything else. I mean, across the Sahara, all of it, on a Goldwing. The most unlikely of bikes to be doing that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, the Goldwing is a perfect bike for touring, but if you're talking about any amount of off-road, that's not really the best choice. Now, I ride a BMW R1200GS, and a lot of people have commented about the long way round and the long way down. And yes, I've seen those documentaries. It's Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman. The first one they rode around the world. It's super entertaining. It's fun to watch. You should definitely check it out. The second one, they go from Scotland down to Cape Town, South Africa. Again, very interesting, very entertaining. You should definitely check it out. But it was inspiring to me, and there's definitely an element of inspiration there, and certainly they've played a role in shaping my life, watching that documentary. However, I really resisted the idea of doing this on a BMW as this idea is formulating. Okay, so I'm in school and I'm thinking about, you know, this idea, and it's growing and growing, and okay, the bike I'm on isn't really cut out for it. At the time, it was a Victory cross country. I had watched Charlie and Ewan do this trip on BMWs, but it just seemed unnecessary and too big, and it just was kind of intimidating, and I thought that maybe it was too expensive and all of this stuff. But as I'm diving into the research and also, you know, I'm not trying to be a copycat of anyone. I'm not trying to copy what Charlie and Ewan did. I'm not trying to copy what Emilio Scotto did. Again, the whole idea of this is doing something that hasn't been done. And if everywhere's already been explored, then you have to get a little creative with how can you do something that hasn't been done. The reality is, people have ridden all over the world, everywhere, on every kind of motorcycle. There is really a limited amount of things you can do for the first time. But what I'm getting at is that this is not a copy of The Long Way Round. This is not a copy of what Emilio Scotto did. This is as original as I can be. in the world that we live in. I kicked around the idea of the KLR or the BMW. I ended up going with the BMW. However, when I got the 800, the GSA, I ended up crashing that bike. Essentially what happened was I got a flat tire going about 70 miles an hour, and it's tube tires, so when it went really quick, and the weight of the bike on that really thin, really tall front wheel turned into a tank slapper almost instantly, and I came off the bike. I'm not going to get into much more detail than that, but this was also an experience for me that really solidified this dream, believe it or not. Because when I came off the bike, I never once thought about not riding again. It didn't scare me away. And I think I realized the gravity of my passion here and how much I love riding motorcycles, that there wasn't much that was going to stop me from doing this. So after that bike went away and I was kind of rethinking things, and I'll tell you the biggest thing that appealed to me about the R1200GS, and I'm not trying to make a sales pitch about this bike. There are other bikes with similar features, but the thing that really drew me to it was the safety features. They may not be good at everything, and R1200s may not be the best off-road, although I'll be honest with you, I have plenty of fun on it. Even when it turns into a little extra work because it's a heavier bike, it was the safety features for me that really appealed to me. And so this is kind of an answer to a different question, but I have gotten some comments on that's not the right bike for that. That's not the right bike for off-road. It's too big, all of this. And if you think it's not the right bike, it's probably not. And it's definitely not the right bike for everyone. I decided that it was the right bike for me and that I would learn how to make it work for me. And I have. And it's been a wonderful bike, and I'm so happy with it. I absolutely love that bike. So that's the bike that became the vehicle for this trip, this dream trip that I was going to take. But I still had a long way to go. So anyways, I'm done with school. I graduated right around the time of that motorcycle crash, and I'm saving money and I'm paying down debt, and I'm, outfitting this motorcycle the way I want, and I'm essentially building what is going to become my home one day. This bike is it's going to be my life. I'm going to live out of that bike. I'm going to camp off of that bike. I really took my time, and I built that bike perfectly for the way that I want it. So to me, the weight is worth it, and still, I'm working on the weight, trying to get some things down with what I'm packing. So I'm working, and also at this time, I had started a YouTube channel because I thought, somehow YouTube was going to have something to do with this. When I was looking at how you could make money while traveling and passive income ideas and all these different things to make money while traveling, YouTube kept popping up, and I kind of had this sense that there was something there for me, that somehow YouTube was going to be tied into this. For those first few years, I was putting out videos here and there of like my riding and, just like little music videos of my trips, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I got really good at editing videos with that. But, it's just been a roller coaster over the last few years leading up to making this happen, and how am I going to make this money and all of this stuff, and I really didn't want the focus to be on money. So, things in life just keep happening, and every once in a while, this is over the course of like 3 years, 3 or 4 years. Sometimes I get closer, sometimes I get further away. I kept pushing the date back, all of this stuff. And it just keeps reshaping and changing and evolving and becoming more realistic and then getting less realistic. And it's just been like this total roller coaster over the last few years as I get financially ready for this. This has really been the limiting factor for me. And then last year, just before I started posting videos, I started to shift my thinking. See, one of the things I learned about myself in school, I learned a lot in school about a lot of things, a lot more than just motorcycle mechanics. And one of the things I learned about myself was that, yes, I have a huge passion for motorcycles, and that passion drives me to want to share that with other people and to convince other people to want to do similar things. And so I started realizing that maybe there's a way that can also benefit me, that I can find a way to live out my wildest dreams, share it with other people, inspire other people to do similar things, teach them what I've learned, and make money doing it so that I can actually afford to travel and live on the road, which is my dream. So 40 times around and what it was started evolving, but what it meant has always been the same. The important thing for me was to explore the unknown, to go further distances and inspire other people to do the same. And I hope in some ways that I have accomplished that. And it seems like I have a little bit in the last year. And as we approach this new year and the things to come, I feel like that's only going to get bigger. And I'm so excited about things to come. I'm going to get more into detail on the progress of this dream in a future video. Not quite there yet, but I am getting closer and I'm pretty excited about it. So I definitely have some pretty cool things to talk about in future videos. Anyways, that's it for today. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything whenever I post something new about motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.